the heart of extreme sound radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're now tuned into a reasonable conversation on Nusound Radio 92 FM. I'm Prerna, and I'll be with you till 1 p.m. Hope everyone enjoyed the show last week, where I was joined with Harper Gill and Vivek Sharma. We had lots of text messages and phone calls and lots of fun as well. And today we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. If anyone would like to speak to us on air, the studio number is 0208 472 9292. You can also text us on 07961 387 787, and you can also tweet us at Nusound92FM. Today I'm joined in the studio with two very special guests. We have Kindi Kaur with us and Gurpal Oppal from Charles Simmons Solicitors. And today we'll be talking about surrogacy. Hi guys, how are you both? Thank you for coming on Nusound Radio.
Thank you very much for having us along. I think it's an interesting topic, especially I think very probably relevant today. It's Father's Day, so especially to a lot of people out there that I think maybe if you look around the world, you've got people growing up with single parents these day and age, and then you've also got people that aren't able to have children. So an interesting topic, especially the day after England losing.
Did you both watch the match last night? It's quite disappointing.
I nearly not made it this morning because I was I wouldn't say I was hungover, but a little bit disappointed. But they did play very, very well. A young, entertaining team. So I'm sure there's a lot more to come. But I think we should give a small introduction to Kindi Kaur, who's a wonderful individual that I've known for a little while, with loads of experience in this field. And I think it'll be really, really helpful to hear some of her views on this topic, especially because of both her practical experience and that of helping other people in similar scenarios.
Well, hi, good morning to everyone, and happy Father's Day. Believe me, it's a dream for many, and something that is possible for everybody. And today we're just going to talk about having babies and people having problems having babies, and Gurpal's going to give us the legalities. I myself have gone through surrogacy and infertility for 22 years.
And just to tell our listeners a little bit about surrogacy, for those who aren't too sure what exactly it entails and what it means, what is it?
Infertility comes in lots of forms. You've got people that are unable to produce eggs, produce sperms, and there's people who can't carry babies for certain reasons, some of them not known to anyone. So surrogacy is where either the husband's sperm and the wife's eggs are used and embryos are made, and they're put into a hired womb. Mm-hmm. Basically, the surrogate, who's the lady who carries your child for 9 months, and then obviously the child is yours. I've been through this procedure myself, and I find it's a very quietly kept secret in the Asian population, firstly, and infertility is in general not discussed openly to family members. But I think everyone has the right to be a parent, so, we need to help people and fulfill their wishes.
Definitely. And why do you think it's not discussed in the Asian community? I mean, is it because of the whole concept that you're not carrying your own child or someone else is carrying your child for you? And I think there's problems with that.
I don't know. I think infertility in general is never discussed. It's always kept quiet, and you always go to weddings and, why haven't you got children yet? It's just something
the usual
you just ignore it, don't you? So
why haven't you got married, first of all?
That's one, yeah.
Well, we started on that topic last week.
Well, that's it. It's a follow-on, isn't it? Why are you married? Then when you're married, when's the children coming? Why have you had none yet? Is there something wrong with your machinery? You've been there, seen it done.
But I think it's probably a typical scenario. As soon as you sort of hit sort of puberty and upwards, it's Jolo Viagra, and after that Jolo Niani. And I think especially from parents and grandparents' point of view, it's the first thing they want is, well, not so much the relationship, but with a grandchild.
Yeah, that's it. It's immense pressure on the Asian community, firstly, I'd say. I mean, I remember when I got married 22 years ago, of course, within 6 months, my mother-in-law started saying, when's the baby going to come?
Within 6 months, wow.
And I'm thinking, gosh, I just...
It takes 9 months.
I know, exactly.
So the maths is slightly wrong there.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But it is a pressure on couples, and it's an even larger pressure if there's something wrong and things aren't happening, and you do get pressure from the family. And I think that's one of the main reasons. It's just put under the carpet. Nobody discusses it. You're sort of isolated. You're by yourselves. And I think it's good to be able to speak to other people going through the same, same sort of experience, and and to know different treatments available out there and what to watch out for, you know. So it's a massive field, and it needs to be discussed openly.
We've had a few text messages already coming in. So, Gurpal, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I suppose changing times, changing circumstances has a lot to do with things as well. I mean, if we look at general trends, people are getting married later and later in their ages. I suppose that the body cycle, the body sort of capacity to sort of produce and reproduce maybe is being played around, especially when we've got other factors affecting our lifestyles, stress, food, living in sort of conditions I suppose maybe different to what it used to be maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. We've got TV this day and age, so obviously you're going to be busy watching the football rather than doing other things.
Yes.
Terrible excuse. Anyway.
Excuse.
Yes, the TV, that's who I blame.
But I think it's not only here. I mean, even abroad, there's so many people suffering. In India, let's take India for an example. There are so many people in the villages suffering with infertility. Some are unable to afford treatment or even tests. These guys, they get pressure from their parents to marry again. It could be the fault of the guy, of course. Obviously, there's so much. It takes two, but it's always, I mean, with the Asian community, the finger in India in particular, I've had experiences out there, is always pointed at the woman. But it's a two-way.
Really unfair, yeah.
It is unfair. But we need to talk about it. People need to be strong. They need to come out and discuss it. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's a medical condition.
We've got quite a few text messages coming in. Sushil has texted in saying surrogacy is wrong morally, ethically, and against the law of nature. You can't have 3 people in making a baby. What's your opinion on that?
Well, has Sushil got children herself? That's a question. Because only the infertile and the childless know the feeling of not having fulfilment. So has she children herself?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're talking about surrogacy. I mean, there is other alternatives. I think it's very important that if you talk about surrogacy, we also talk about adoption side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at it from a legal point of view, maybe, I see a lot of people coming to me who aren't able to have children for one reason or another, and usually the first thing on their mind is to go back to India and maybe adopt a relative, whether it's a sister's child or a brother's child. But when it comes to law itself, it's not always as clean cut, and sometimes we see some very high profile cases when we've got actors from overseas, the Hollywoods going abroad to some of these African countries and adopting and taking children back. India itself, a population of 97 million, you'd be surprised that a quarter of the children growing up in India are without any parental care.
Wow.
And when it comes to adoption, when people going back to India and saying, well, hold on, we can't have a child, the first thing we look at is adoption. Surrogacy isn't always the first thing in people's mind. And yes, there is ethical and moral issues around, which is maybe a wider debate as a whole. But if you look at surrogacy, it happens. Adoption, it does happen. But the problem you've got with both those scenarios, it's not as easy and clean cut as people think. Anybody who wants to adopt in the UK has to go through a rigorous procedure to be vetted to see whether they're fit to adopt in the first place. It's not something that you can just go out and do. And I think it's issues like that also need to be looked upon in terms of, if you are going to go, which country do you go to? Are you going back to India? Are you going back to Pakistan? Because with surrogacy, we don't hear about or the practice, I think, isn't so prevalent in the UK as it is overseas.
It's just come into the limelight. I mean, this being TV programmes, Panorama, etc., that are just opening up the surrogacy market in India in particular. It's massive, it's huge, and we're not talking about just the UK. People from America, Australia, worldwide are going to India. The main reason being is because of the affordability, I'd say, and secondly, because of the relaxed laws, not necessarily to the health and fitness of a surrogate, but to the amount of embryos that can be transferred into a surrogate. In this country, currently, the law is 1 embryo, which really limits your chances.
So if you want to have a surrogate, you're only allowed 1 embryo and 1 shot.
It is. I think the reason in this country that's implemented is to avoid multiple births, which of course can have complications in themselves. I mean, I've been through a multiple birth through a surrogate and I lost both the baby girls. So it's got its pros and it's got its cons, but obviously when you're longing for a child, you will go that extra mile, you will take that extra risk because it's something you need for fulfillment, and it is unless you've been through childlessness and infertility and all the trials of IVF and failures and your sort of relationships on the rocks over it, you do not know the feeling of fulfillment once that child is in your hands.
Just a curiosity, a lot of, when we've talked about two options, orphanaging and also surrogacy, but did you look at the orphanage scenario and see whether you can adopt?
Yes, I did. We did look into the procedures and adoption. Firstly, I went through 20-odd cycles of IVF.
Okay.
In this country, in
so that's
India.
Fertilisation.
Yes,
outside.
Outside. Then it's implanted into my womb, and I was unable to carry again and again. I miscarried. So, but I had looked into adoption in this country and inter-country, but the procedure was so long-winded. If I was to go to an orphanage in India at that point, it would have taken me up to 3 years to bring my child back. Yes.
And why is that? Why does it take so long? If there's so many...
Gurpal will come in here and help us out with the legalities of everything you have to register with, a CARA and, you know...
Well, there's two things we've got to look at. I mean, anybody who wanting to adopt in the UK first has to go through a rigorous procedure in the UK. You've got to be assessed by your local authority to be fit to adopt in the first place. You've got to register with them. You've got to be of a certain age. It's only thereafter that they'll actually put you on a register, and once you're on the register, you then have to go through an agency before you adopt. And a lot of the time, people will want to probably adopt in the UK. It's only when you try and look to adopt overseas, the question will then becomes twofold. You've then got the law of the land from where you're going to be adopting from, as well as making sure that you fulfil the UK requirements. Problem you've got with India is a lot of the adoption rules and regulations in India isn't actually recognised by UK. So if you do want to adopt through India, you've got to go through one of the two main agencies out there, which is either going to be through CARA or through the adoption agencies that they've got outside there. But it's not just plain and simple as that. In order for you to adopt from India, you've got to go through the procedure of the law of the land there. And I think maybe your practical experience sort of probably tells you it may not be as long as in the UK, but it's still something that a lot of people do find difficult, because trying to go to a foreign country, try and stay there, dealing with authorities. I know personally, working in India, opening up a simple bank account can be horrendous unless you know someone.
It's lots of bureaucracy, unfortunately.
Oh gosh, yes.
And India's all about is who you know. And I think what's happening, well, there's a lot of agencies now opening up in India who are probably promoting the whole scenario of surrogacy and adoption to the Western countries. And I suppose a lot of people from the West find India sometimes easier to deal with. It's like the health scenario. A lot of people go back to India to get their knees replaced,
of
to
course,
get
that's
the
an
teeth,
open
the
market.
eyes.
Teeth done,
Why are they going back to India? Is it because it's cheaper? Is it because it's easier? Are people not able to wait on the NHS when it comes to UK? So when it comes to, I suppose, easiness of doing things, it sometimes can be easier to go back and pay for it. And I suppose if you've got the dollars, sometimes it helps.
Of course, yeah, I do agree with that, but nowadays everything's been toughened up in India as well. The laws on infertility treatments abroad, it's really important people use ART registered clinics. These are registered clinics with the government, and these registered clinics liaise with the government in this country as well. If you're going for something like IVF treatment, egg donation, sperm donation, any kind of fertility treatment abroad, it's important, firstly, the medical visa. Secondly, use registered clinics, and obviously for your own safety as well. And it's not necessarily ease, it's lots and lots of complications in going abroad for treatment and then trying to get back into this country. I myself, as I said, I went through the process myself, with your help, of course, Gurpal. And it's a long process, and don't be expected to go to India, collect your baby and just come back. It's a massive...
That's crazy. People always have the perception, because there are so many orphans in India, and, you know, especially so many people in poverty as well, that it'd be relatively easy. You have this perception, you know, just go there, pick up a poor little child and bring them back to the UK. But, I mean, it's not as easy as that.
Well, there's actually 749 orphanages in India. And I think what it is trying to find what we call, or what they call in India, an NRI parent is probably maybe sometimes seen as more favourable, because a child may grow up in a better environment than they would in India. Not to say that all adoption doesn't occur in India either. But I think for people from overseas, maybe very similar to what Kindi said earlier on, it does become a lot easier for someone from the West not to go through the red tape they have to do in their own country and to go overseas and to adopt. But once again, adoption, the actual procedure itself, isn't as easy as most people think, and it can take up to a year, if not longer sometimes, to actually get your child back to
I think
UK.
we're looking at a minimum of about 2 to 3 years at the moment, if you look at all the car registration, etc. I mean, the surrogacy procedure itself, it used to be taking 3 months, and now we're looking at 9 months plus, due to the backlog of the passport issuing authorities in this country, of course.
Maybe it's one of the reasons why people maybe are opting for surrogacy over adoption. Especially, I think the other thing with the Asian community is, when you adopt, you're still adopting someone else's child.
Of course, this is going to be either yours genetically, your husband's sperm and your eggs, or your eggs and a donor sperm. And genetically, the child's still going to be linked to you. It's yours. The perception of Asians, it's somebody else's child, etc. I mean, the new generation wouldn't bother me in the slightest, as I said. I mean, I wouldn't be without my son now, but if I was able to adopt, and it was an easier system, I would have adopted. And it really wouldn't have made no difference to me. Obviously, going through infertility for so long, a baby is a baby, no matter what colour, creed, caste it comes from. A child is theirs, and you're going to nurture it, you're going to give it love, you're going to put into that child everything what you want.
I think that answers quite a lot of... we've got a few texters, such as Farah, who text in saying there's other ways to have a baby, what's wrong with adoption? So adoption does have all these legal issues and complications as well. And also genetically, people might want something, a kid that's favourable to their own genes.
With adoption, like I've mentioned earlier, traditionally, from an immigration point of view, I get a lot of people coming back to me after going to India and say, look, we've got a High Court piece of paper to say that we've legally adopted our brother's child or our sister's child. And sometimes you'll get children, everyone from a newly born child to someone who's 16, 17, about to enter into adulthood. And I think by simply having an adoption deed from India makes it their right to keep the child across to the UK. Unfortunately, when it comes to UK law, they will look at adoption and see, well, if adoption's going to occur, is it one of necessity, or was it one of ease in order to pass the immigration rules? So a lot of the time, even UK law will look behind the actual reasons for adopting in the first place. And unfortunately, in the past, a lot of people have abused the system.
Exactly.
And in fact, there's certain nationalities where your name of your child used to be put on your passport rather than as an individual. And there's a lot of children that have come to UK on their uncle's passports, aunt's passports, and other family members claim to be their parents when they're not. Unfortunately, that now doesn't occur in a lot of the countries, and it means that people look to alternatives. And still, with the UK immigration rules, they will see if you're trying to bring someone, if it's adoption or convenience, the phrase used, then you're going to have troubles. And obviously now people don't like the adoption because it does take a long time. It's not a straightforward procedure.
And I think what you're saying now with the people abusing the system is really making life difficult for genuine people who've got babies that are genetically theirs, British people, stuck in India at the moment for over 9 months at a time. Parents are separated, the dads are here, the mums are in India with the babies, renting accommodation. And we're not talking about Indians or Asians. There's white British people out, Harley Street doctors. I've got doctors that I've helped, and they sent him out there. And he's working here, and his wife's in India in a hotel. She's been out there now for 5 months. And, the procedure is so complicated. The passports get sent to the Liverpool office here, and then they're held until the whole process has gone through. But then the father is not being able to see the child, the mother's not being able to see the father, the baby's not being able to see the rest of the family. The segregation at the moment is absolutely really ridiculous at the moment.
And that's for surrogacy?
That's for surrogacy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify for our listeners, when it comes to bringing a child from overseas to UK, the difference between a surrogate child and adopted child is twofold. With a surrogate child, you would obtain your father's nationality by descent. So therefore, if the donor is British, the child will also then obtain British nationality by descent. Whereas with adoption, you're traditionally or initially you would be an Indian citizen. You're then applying to come over here as an adopted child. So therefore, the procedure's by way of an entry clearance as an adopted child, as opposed to obtaining direct British nationality straight away.
That's exactly it. It's really important.
And that's the distinction between the two.
This is not confused, yeah.
Yeah, so when we're talking about those particular two issues from an immigration point of view, we've got to bear that in mind. So one's obtaining direct nationality and the other's obtaining entry clearance to into the UK.
Not only once the entry clearance does take place, it does take a further up to minimum of 16 weeks to apply for a child's British passport. So
and that procedure goes for anybody who's British who goes to India and has a child, whether it's by way of a surrogacy, even if it's your own child. So anybody, even I suppose in Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, or any other country, that's a procedure they would have to go through. So that's one for every person or every party who's had a child abroad.
So just to clarify, if you're a British citizen but you go to one like India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh and have a child, that child will then have to
obtain the British nationality. And it's not as straightforward as just going down to the British High Commission and say, look, I've got a child here, can I have a British passport?
No.
You still need to go through the actual whole application process.
Wow.
It is a long process, but we are experienced in it, and Gurpal is experienced in it, aren't you? We're all here for helping.
Unfortunately, I think the biggest problem we have is anybody who's had a child in India, and if they're going to apply for the British nationality or the passport, no one, especially with a newborn child, will ever leave the child behind. And those parents that leave the child behind with, I suppose, a nanny or a third party, it's extremely difficult, and the heartache that's felt with a lot of parents, it's unbelievable, and I really do feel for those parents, but it's a procedure that you have to go through.
I think we have to really look at this and say, hold on, these people have been longing for a child for so long, they've eventually got their dream, basically, the child is there, and then to be separated, it's the hardest feeling. I mean, I myself just was fortunate enough that my husband was working, and then I was able to spend the entire, it only took 3.5 months in those, back in 2011, to spend the time with my child, and my husband was able to come back and forth because the passports weren't held in those days. So we still had good quality family time together, even though we were separated. But now the issues are getting so difficult that the passports are held for both the parents, and you're unable to travel unless you make special requests, and it's really hard to keep a family united, but it is something that is rewarding at the end of it, I'd say.
I think when we look at the rules and regulations, and you're talking about the difficulties now people facing, whether they're actually going to apply for a child's nationality or even if you're going through adoption, I think the one thing we've got to realise, sometimes systems are open to abuse, and sometimes the treatment that's brought in is for a reason. I gave you a very small example how back in the day people will put their children's name on people's passports in order to bring them over. So when you've got scenarios like that, and when a system's open to abuse, sometimes you've got to make sure all the red tape is there to make sure the genuine applicants go through, and especially when now you've got a scenario where you've got agencies, especially in India, promoting scenarios, whether it's a surrogacy or whether it's adoption. I think it's very important that there's rules and regulations. We've got CAR out there, we've got the other adoption Indian Authority registration scheme out there, that they're there to make sure that it's all monitored, because we've got a child's life to deal with as well.
Of course,
it's not. It's got to be done in a proper and a systematic
Of course, and the
manner.
parents have to be obviously able to look after the child, and they have to be of good character, which what we'd expect in this country. You have to have the right background, the right family stability to bring a child up.
Because what you don't want is third parties involved in there who are then making money on this scenario. I mean, we've had this kidney scandals from India where people are selling the kidneys for medical purposes. So I think the red tape has to be there, and I suppose it's necessary. But yes, I think when you first take this path via the surrogacy adoption, you've got to make yourself aware of it.
Path is very important in getting the right clinic. Honestly, we've been through so many experiences. We've gone to clinics very high ranking in Mumbai. We've gone to have our IVF treatment there, and when we've gone to ask to look at the embryos, there's been nothing. So they were taking money off us and just implanting water. For 3 months I stayed in Mumbai. I asked to see the embryos. I just had a gut feeling, because I know what embryos look like. I mean, obviously, and there was nothing. So it's really important that people are guided to the right clinic, trustworthy and honest. It is so important, so you're just not taken for a ride. And this is what I've spent 20 odd years of my life pursuing, and now I've found a good base and I've got what I wanted. So I've set up this website to help and advise. It's a free website. I don't charge nothing. It's just so people don't get ripped off, conned, their feelings played with, like I had done for so many years. And honestly, just to be able to jump that section of years of being taken for a ride, people knowing you're so desperate for something and just using that emotionally is something people need to avoid. But on the positive side, there are very, very good clinics abroad and here that have good success results and are honest and reliable.
Today I'm joined with Kindi Kaur and Gurpal Oppal, and we're talking about surrogacy. So Kindi, just before the break, you mentioned that your journey took 20 years. So for some of our listeners out there who are thinking about surrogacy, that's quite a shocking, amount of time that you'd had to wait. I mean,
it's not only the surrogacy. I mean, I went through years of having IVF done, ICSI, which is another sort of where they inject the sperm with the eggs, etc., and put it into your womb. I went through every single avenue possible. I spent a lot of money privately, and as I said, surrogacy was an option that was just new to me back in 2010. If I'd known about this surrogacy abroad, I would have actually saved myself a lot of time and money and gone for it earlier, because the success rates are really good.
Okay.
I mean, whereas me having IVF done, put the embryo inside into my womb, and I was losing them, or they weren't attaching. These girls are young girls in their 20s that are used, who've had their families. They've already got a family life. They live, obviously the clinics we use, the girls live with their families, which is really important while they're pregnant, because the last thing you want is where you see on TVs these great big sheds, and there's beds in there, and there's all these surrogate women lying there. They're getting fed at a certain time, they're getting watered at a certain... It's like a cattle run.
Horrible, yeah.
And so...
Because there have been shows about it, and people do sort of think, if you're going to India to get a surrogate, it's probably a vulnerable young woman who's selling her womb for money.
That's why the importance of using a good clinic, a recommended clinic, and to make sure these surrogates are healthy, they're looked after, they're not kept in cattle run cages, as I call them, and they're having family. I mean, my surrogate, as an example, was living with her mum, her mother-in-law, her husband, and her 3 children.
Okay.
She had she was, everyone in the family knew what she was doing. It wasn't hidden from no one. It's an honest setup, and basically this is what you want. You want someone to be able to live with their children for the 9 months, not be cooped up in some shed where there's loads of other so it is a factory. And these are the sort of things that I'm trying to push across to people. It's not a shame to be infertile. It's nothing to be ashamed of to talk about infertility. It's nothing to be ashamed of to talk about surrogacy, because the gift of life is everyone's right. And to have a child in your hands, to call you mummy and daddy today on Father's Day, I mean, it's the most beautiful feeling. And you can only feel this if you haven't got children, the longingness. You need to have, you just need some, to make your family complete. We all, when we're born, as women and men, we look at our life as having a family, having children, and, working for that. And not having that one thing that bonds a family can be destroying. It can shatter relationships. I know of a few people who've had to actually split up and divorce because they haven't been able to have a child. But we can help. There are lots of treatments out there. Honestly, there is nature and science have come together to give you lots of options. It's not a no-no for anyone nowadays.
Exactly. We've had a text in from Preet who said science is wonderful and your dreams can come true. I have a beautiful daughter through surrogacy and my husband and I are very happy.
That's
so, I mean, there are happy cases.
I think there's going to be a lot of people out there as well that probably, and I think maybe like the earlier text as well, that will turn around and say, well, look, you're playing with nature and it's not your right to do so, and it's not science's right to do so. So I think side by side you will get people that will be negative towards the whole scenario, but I think it's very warming to hear your words as someone who's gone through it, to see, well, at the end of it, it's worth you taking that step in order to fulfill something that you wanted.
Of course, you can get negativity in every field in medical science. There's negativity in heart transplants, abortions is a big issue. There's always, everyone has a right to air their view, and obviously if it doesn't suit them, don't do it. But there's people it will suit, and they're longing, and they will go to any avenue to do. I mean, I myself personally was up for cloning. If I could have cloned a baby, I would have gone for it.
Okay.
That's a very, very bold statement to make.
Yeah.
You mentioned you got a website earlier on, Kindi. It'd be nice, I think, to maybe, if we can, mention the website for those people who are interested and maybe want to look through the procedure.
It's www.miraclebabyuk.com, and I'm going to give you my number online, if that's okay on air.
Yeah, please do.
And you can anyone can call me, Punjabis, Gujaratis, anyone, English, anyone can call me and speak to me. Honestly, sometimes you don't want to talk about it with other people, but if someone has been through it, you can call me on 07 809 490 132.
I would like to tell the listeners, I've known Kindi for a little while, and I can vouch for it. She's a fantastic listener. If you need a new friend, Kindi's your friend. She'll be the first one to sort of pick up the phone, keep in touch with you to make sure that you're okay. Especially if you're going through this process yourself, if you've gone through adoption, if you've gone even through IVF treatment and it's not worked out. I think Kindi's one of those people out there that I won't call her a social worker. One of those people that sits with a couch and listens to what you say.
No, I'm not one of those. I'm an active mother.
Active mother. No, but she's a fantastic friend to have. A phone call if you ever need one.
I know, it's fantastic. You've been, trying for 20 years. It's a really long time to, persevere and not get disheartened.
Of course, but everyone has rocky periods. It causes great strain on your relationship with your husband. And your family, of course, but it's perseverance. Honestly, my motto is never ever give up. There's always hope. There really is always hope. Just don't give up. Don't feel down. Just speak to someone. Ring me, speak to me, go on my website, fill in a form if you don't want to talk about it. It's all a free service. I don't charge nothing. I just want to help others because God has given me a gift of life, which I want to help others achieve without going through the trauma that I went through.
So you were successful with surrogacy, and tell us about your child.
My son Jeevan was born on 11/11/11, and he was a frozen embryo, which had been frozen for some time, and basically the pregnancy went on. We were notified. We were kept updated with scans, etc. And just before he was due, I was notified, so I went out to India, and we went to the clinic where he was going to be born, and I was there for the birth. It was a C-section, and I cut his cord. Actually, let me video it as well. And as soon as the baby was born, the cord was cut. He had his injection, slap on the bum, and he was given to me to feed, and that was it.
Oh wow!
But I did keep in contact with the surrogate because we had.
Well, that's lovely.
It's not advised out there because of obviously reasons. People are open to blackmail, etc., which is a possibility even in this country. Surrogates can keep the baby if they have it for you. So, but I do keep in contact with her. We made a sort of special bond, and every time we do go out to India, we go and visit her. She comes and visits Jeevan, and I will tell him as well as he's older how he came about. It's not a secret, and if it wasn't for this surrogate, my son wouldn't have been here, and our family wouldn't have been complete.
Because our earlier texter Preet, who said she got a baby through surrogacy, said we'll never tell our daughter though. So I think there's still some sort of stigma attached that even if you do have a child through surrogacy, you would never tell them.
I think I'd put that down to the Asian community. Infertility is such it's a scare for them to talk about your son or daughter-in-law who can't have children. It's like you're shunned from the community. Hold on, this is a medical condition. It's, say you've got cancer. Asian people used to hide cancer. My son or daughter's got cancer. It needs to be brought out. Infertility is a medical condition. It's nobody's fault. It's nature's fault. It needs to be dealt with. And if we can talk about it openly and accept it, it would make us much better community. And I think children that are born through surrogacy or IVF or egg donation or sperm donation, I think they have the right to know because they're going to find out somewhere along the line. They will, because your families are aware, etc. I know it's something people
Someone will always slip up and say something.
Not only slip up, I think they have the right to know.
Yeah.
If you have egg donation in this country now, and you have egg donation and you go for IVF, that child has got the right to know. So I think that scares a lot of people. But your child, once it's in your hands, you're nurturing it. It's going to always think of you as mum and dad, whether somebody else gave birth to him or not. My child wakes up and says, "Good morning, mummy." And I'm his mummy, no matter who gave birth to him.
I think, and the other thing is, the more people that do come out and talk about issues like this, it helps other people to relate. And I think there's a lot of people in the closet that don't come out. And I think as people do come out and do talk about it, you will then have a generation of people knowing about this scenario. It's not something like you said earlier on where you don't hear about it, or there's one in the million. If there isn't the one in the million, and it's more and more people, and it becomes, I wouldn't say the norm, but something that's socially acceptable.
Acceptable, of course.
I think people then move on, and I think as generations move on, because it's like with the divorce scenario, it's like with a daughter-in-law that's no good. It's probably maybe a generation, and that generation has a thought pattern maybe that goes back from India or Pakistan or from Bangladesh. But living in the UK, we do have a different social point of life. and living in the UK, we accept things maybe our parents didn't accept.
Of course,
cutting our hair for girls,
of course,
going out to restaurants in the evening.
I know.
If you go back a generation back, it wasn't allowed.
the done thing. Yes, you're right.
If you look at females, look at Asians, we've now progressed forward where we're in now in every type of profession. And I think with time, things will move on, and I think it's very, very important that we do talk about issues from both aspects, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and then once you know about something, you can talk about it.
Of course, I think that is the main opener. That's why it's nice to come on the show and talk, because there's very few people hesitant to talk about infertility, Asians in particular, surrogacy, another thing,
But maybe that's because the mother-in-law might think, well, hold on, it's not my son's fault, it's a daughter.
But this is a mother and father-in-law thing. We have to overcome this. If you want,
but then traditionally, it sometimes has been.
I think trying to make the older generation understand that this is science.
Exactly.
It's science. It's giving you a grandchild that once you start playing with, if somebody else has given birth to his grandchild, you're going to just make a relationship, and you're going to love this child, and you're never going to think of it as anybody else's.
Yeah, but what traditionally happens now, when you got a newly bride coming to the family, well, you're going to feed them badam and pinya and everything else to make them fertile.
You must eat the badam and everything.
Make them fertile, and if it's not fertile, well, but then that's what happens, and I suppose one of the reasons why we've got this myth and this scenario where it's almost like a taboo subject is because of that, because it's, well, people don't understand it. I mean, if you didn't know until 2010 and 11, how many other people out there, especially from a different generation, that probably even heard of the word IVF, heard of the surrogacy, so it's...
It is a sort of it's a teaching game, I'd say. It's not a game. It needs to be brought out, and people do need to take it seriously, and they do need to talk about it. This is really, really important, because every time I speak to somebody, if I go to a hospital appointment, I sit and have a conversation, I talk to them about, I help people make babies, and they sort of look at me and go, oh, this is how my son came along. And it gets, I know a friend who can't have children, I know someone who's been through this. Even while I was in hospital as a patient a few weeks ago, the nurse was talking to me, she says, oh, my best friend can't have children, she's tried everything. And I said, look, I couldn't, it's just, once the conversation starts, there's always somebody who knows somebody who cannot have children. It's 1 in 6 at the moment, infertility.
Wow.
So it's a massive, massive problem, but it's curable. It is curable, and there is a way around for a child, for everyone. Really, there is, and we need to talk about it. We really do.
We've got a text from Iqbal Mirza from East Ham. He said, how much will the process cost with legal fees, etc.?
Right, we'll go with, if you're going for treatment abroad, say in India, we're looking at it, depending on obviously what you need. If you're going for surrogacy, we're looking at, it can be anything about £4,000 just for the treatment to get your surrogate pregnant, which is really good. And we're looking at a total cost of up to about £15,000 currently. That's having the IVF treatments, having the baby born, and then doing the legalities and bringing the child back to the country. So £15,000.
£15,000.
It's a lot of money, that, Kindi. I mean, for a lot of people, it may not be affordable.
Of course, but then if you look at IVF in this country without the surrogate and the egg donation, you're looking at £6,000 per attempt with one embryo. So it's a massive comparison in price. And, of course, you get the chance of having more embryos, which is fourfold increasing your chance of having an achievable pregnancy. But I'm comparing it to the UK, obviously. I'm born and bred here, and I've had treatments here. And, as I said, £6,000 for one attempt in this country. And the possibility of just one embryo taking is like 15%, I'd say, to be honest. And whereas if you've got 4 sort of embryos, and you've got sort of more of a 50-60% chance. The statistics of obviously the success rates are all on the website, which are really, really good.
We've actually got a caller on air.
Of course.
Hello, welcome to Nusound Radio.
I think we've got a bad line here.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Maybe we'll come back to the caller in a while.
Yeah, we'll come back to the caller in a second.
So you were saying, the success
statistics, the success rates are all on the website. They currently need updating. We're looking at 60% upwards at the moment, 60 to 80%. Bear in mind, these girls are young that they're using out there, 24, 25. So the younger the age, obviously, the higher the success rate. And, we need to look at every best option available for everyone.
I think we've got our caller back.
Hello,
welcome to Nusound Radio. No, I think we've...
We've lost the
No,
call.
we've got a technical fault on our side, I think. Never mind. But no, we're talking about surrogacy, but at the same time, we've also got the adoption route as well.
Of course, yeah.
And I think it's something that maybe we should once again confirm to our listeners as well. Surrogacy is an option, but adoption is something there for people as well.
Of course it's there. It's just I wish the time span was... I wish the government would relax the time span on this, because there are so many children out there without parents in orphanages that everyone longing for a child will give a beautiful home to. I understand the strict rigmarole. Obviously, you want a child to come to a stable environment. You want the possibilities of any sort of abuse ruled out. So all the police checks, etc., everything need to be done. There's a criteria to be followed. But speeding up the time process, honestly, people's lives go by. If I'd gone for adoption, I would have been over the adoption age even now. So there's so much that needs to be looked at, and really does need to look at by people who know the importance of wanting a child, and the love that infertile couples can give to children.
I think we've got our caller back.
Hi, caller.
Hello, caller. Hi, welcome to Nusound Radio. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
So, what's your name?
Tina.
Tina, what would you like to speak to us about?
Well, firstly, I just wanted to say thank you for doing a programme on this subject, which is so sensitive, and there's a little bit of a taboo about this. So I'm just really grateful that you've decided, to talk about this.
Well, thank you very much.
On the radio.
Tina, can I just ask you, why is it taboo? What's your reasons or your thoughts why it's a taboo?
I'm not sure, because I don't have an issue with it, but it's maybe it's I don't even think it's a cultural issue. It's just that some people they have a difficulty in understanding that somebody else, a third party, could carry your biological baby, and I think it's about the ownership and who is the actual true parent, and also I think the dangers of that surrogate mother carrying the baby and then becoming the risk of that.
Can I just come in
not
there?
wanting to then part with the baby. I think maybe that's an issue that some people struggle with.
It is. I'd say hi. I'd say definitely that's an issue. More so, I'd say, with UK laws, as the surrogate has the right to keep the child, even though it's not biologically hers. But when we go to clinics abroad, this is one side I really had to look into. Obviously, I didn't want to lose my child to anybody. So they actually have a legal binding contract, which is legally bound by the courts of India. And through the clinic are responsible. The surrogate is only renting her womb. She has no contact. She's got no right of any contact. She's got no right of entry into this country as a child's mother. So this is something we really have to make clear to people. That if you're going through surrogacy abroad in India, the surrogate is on a contract. It's a hired womb service. And I'm glad you called in to say, actually, it's nice to discuss this subject, because it isn't discussed. And it is nice to hear people that will appreciate that we're discussing something that's not even affecting you in person, but it might be affecting somebody you know, a relative or a relative. So it's positive. It's nice. Thank you for calling.
No, it's not just that. It is a personal issue. Having considered adoption and being too old or beyond the age group, that it's nice to know that there are other options.
There is, and if anyone needs help, they can ring me. As I said, it's a free service. I'll meet up. I'll take my baby along. We've met people up. We've had people from every sort of age and area and group, and we just go and meet up, have a chat. Because if anyone wants to ask me anything, I'm quite open about it. And it's, if I can help, I think I've helped about 15, 20 people become parents in the last year or so. So anything, I know the feeling I had, the feeling of joy and sort of, it's just, it's hard to explain. But just giving somebody else that feeling, it's making making everything I'm doing worthwhile.
But I just ask one thing, because unfortunately I only caught the second half of your programme, and I was just wondering whether it's possible to listen to the first half again, whether
you have
any facilities for that.
Yeah, we do. On YouTube, www.youtube.com/Nusound Radio shows. All our shows are updated on that, so you'll be able to hear it tomorrow.
That's great.
I'm going to give you
great.
my website again while we're here. It's
Yes.
www.miraclebabyuk.com, and my phone number is 07809 490 132, and anyone who wants to contact me can.
That's
Okay.
great.
Tina, thank you very
Thanks
much
again.
for calling.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tina said something very, very interesting. She said sometimes people don't like the thought, or maybe other people can't understand the scenario where you've got something external being put into your body, which is basically what happens. I suppose listening to the conversation, I started to think about when people have blood transfusions, when people have kidney transplants, liver transplants, heart transplants.
Eye transplants, yeah.
Eye transplants. So
Pacemakers or anything.
So, I mean, I suppose socially, medical science is going leaps and bounds. If we can accept that we've now come to a scenario where we can save people by doing transplants, then surely maybe
Of course,
this may
for
be...
our life, we'll accept somebody's heart.
Yeah.
Come on, for our life. But for our life's happiness, we can't accept somebody else giving bearing a baby for us. I mean, come on, where are we? This is the 20th century now. We need to accept that science is out there for a reason.
But maybe that's part of the problem, Kindi, the fact that a lot of people haven't moved on and people aren't living in the 20th century, they're still living in the past, or in maybe a scenario where they've got a happy world.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we
as
get
you
this
say-
household thing. When you watch the TV social programs and how the ideal family should be, and when you don't have that ideal family scenario, well, people won't accept an external factor that might come in and change things, or you might have to adjust your lifestyle.
This is where nurturing and culturing people comes in. This is where awareness, cultural awareness, medical science awareness, this is where people need to be educated. And this is where I'm firmly standing to educate, to talk to in-laws. If mother and father-in-law sometimes phone me up and ask me questions.
Wow.
My daughter-in-law's going to go through this. Can you tell us all about it? And I say, yeah. Oh, what about this and that? And I'll answer everything because I've been through it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like doing sales work. It is. It's like selling something to someone for nothing, but trying to make them understand that it's okay. Honestly, once that baby's in your family, you will not be without.
Well, it is the unknown, isn't it? It's not knowing what the procedure is, not knowing how it's going to pan out. It's not like, I suppose, doing a Vista application to call your family member across, which probably everyone can do by doing a simple sponsorship.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's doing something which there's not many people out there that you can speak to, and there's not much, I suppose, on the internet. If you read,
there isn't. The website's very confusing.
Very confusing.
Yes, it is. There's no clarity at the moment on legal issues. That's why currently I'm helping 3 people stuck in India at the moment with their surrogate babies. So, and I'm cohabiting with you, my dear. So, if anyone needs any legal advice, just contact Gurpal. Contact myself, contact nusound. They'll put you in contact with us, and we will help anyone in any situation. Legalities, it sounds frightening, but honestly, it isn't. I dealt with it myself with Gurpal, and, he helps people daily. And as I said, there's people out there at the moment going through the whole process, and it sounds daunting, but the end result is well worth it.
And Gurpal, what's your contact details if someone does need legal advice for surrogacy or adoption?
Well, I'm based in Ilford. Hopefully most people know the telephone number already. It's Charles Simmons Immigration Solicitors. It's 0208 514 0000.
One last time for our listeners, what is the website and your number? Because unfortunately we're coming to the end of the show.
Oh, no.
It's been wonderful having you both here.
Oh, thank you. It's www.miraclebabyuk.com, and it's 07809 490 132, and I'm based in Gravesend in Kent.
A British-born Asian?
A British-born Asian.
Excellent. And I think you've really helped, this show. It really educated myself as well, because surrogacy is something that there is a taboo about. It's a bit, I don't know, we don't really like talking about it. And I think it's very true as well, when people can't have children themselves, only then it's relevant to them. Everyone else, who can have children...
It's not relevant. You don't even look into it. It's like having cancer in the family. Unless you've got cancer in the family, you look into everything, But it's just something, until it's in front of you, you ignore, but we need to bring out the awareness.
It's the unknown, Kindi. I think
Yes.
it's like what Prerna said earlier on. If you don't know about something, you don't know how to sort of tackle it or how to deal with it.
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
yeah, knowledge is power.
Of course,
And
yes.
thank you very much for the knowledge you've given
And
today.
thank you for coming, young man. We had to drag you out. I'm glad you turned up.
Well, it's Sunday morning. It's the day after the football.
Football.
So, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
no, but it's always wonderful to be invited along by Nusound.
Yeah, they are
and the team.
fantastic. It's good. The awareness is there as well. Thank you very much,
Thank
guys,
you
for
both.
having us.
No, thank you for having us.
Goodbye.